Every great company starts with an idea, right? But here's the thing. The second you need to convince anyone else, or even just yourself, that idea has to become something more. It has to become a set of numbers. So today, we are breaking down exactly how to do that, how to turn your amazing concept into a financial forecast that's actually grounded in reality, not just wishful thinking.
Okay, so you've got it, that big idea, the one you think could really be something. But then comes the question that trips up so many founders. What's it actually worth in dollars and cents? How do you put a price tag on a concept that, right now, only exists in your head?
You know the feeling. You're staring at a blank spreadsheet and you feel this immense pressure to just make up some numbers. To fill in the blanks and make the business plan look legit. If you've been there, you are definitely not alone. But this is exactly where things can start to go wrong.
And here's why that's so dangerous. People with experience, we're talking investors, competition judges, mentors, they can smell baseless numbers from a mile away. Our source material puts it perfectly. When the numbers have no grounding, the conversation ends fast. See, if you can't explain the logic behind your forecast, you lose all credibility. They're not just investing in your idea, they're investing in your ability to think it through.
Now, this isn't just some abstract concept. To really see why this matters so much, we're going to look at a real-world story from our source that is the perfect cautionary tale of what happens when you just guess.
The author's very first company was called Eclectic, and the idea was super simple. Sell cool, unique t-shirts to fans at concerts. The passion was there, the effort was there, but in the end, the company failed. And a huge reason for that failure was a total lack of a disciplined, realistic financial forecast from the very beginning.
You can really see the difference in approach here. On one side, what he actually did, focused on pure enthusiasm and effort, had only a fuzzy idea of who the customer was and basically just guessed at the company's potential. And on the other side, what he should have done, focused on the market math, used real data, and built a projection with clear, logical reasoning. It's a totally different mindset.
So how should he have done it? Well, with a clear process. And that's what this is, a 6-step framework that gives you a much smarter way to build a forecast. It's a method for working from the top down, starting with the biggest possible number and then logically narrowing it down to something that's actually real and defensible. So let's walk through this, step by step, using that t-shirt company as our guinea pig.
All right, so first things first. Our process has to start by figuring out the absolute maximum potential. This is all about finding the ceiling for your market, the biggest it could possibly be, before we start getting into the messy details of what you can actually capture.
The method we're using is called top-down forecasting. And what's so great about this approach is that you don't need a single paying customer to do it. It's really perfect when you're just at the idea stage because you start with big public data, and then you just use logic to whittle it down.
Okay, let's apply this to Eclectic, the t-shirt company. We're going to start with the biggest, broadest number we can find. Using a source like the US Census Bureau, we can pretty easily find the total population of the local area. For our example, let's just say that number is 2 million people. That's our massive starting point.
But obviously, not all 2 million of those people are potential customers. So step one is to define our audience with data. We can look up public information, things like age demographics or data on entertainment spending, and use that to filter our big number down. So in our example, we figure out that maybe only 400,000 of them are actually likely to go to concerts.
And now, for step 2, we turn those people into potential dollars. Let's do some quick math. If every single one of those 400,000 people bought just one t-shirt per year for $25, well, the total theoretical market would be $10 million. We call this the market ceiling. Now, is that realistic? No way. But it gives us a vital upper limit to work from.
A $10 million market sounds incredible, but let's be real, it's a fantasy. Step 3 is where things get serious, and it might just be the most important step of all, cutting that huge number down to what you can actually serve. This is where your idea starts to feel like a real business.
This is really where theory smacks into reality. Remember, Eclectic isn't some giant online store. It's one person, physically at a venue. So you have to apply some serious real-world limits. Which cities can I actually drive to? Do these concert venues even allow people to sell stuff outside? And how many fans even show up early enough to look around? You can almost feel that big market number starting to shrink.
So after you apply all of those real-world filters, that huge pool of 400,000 potential customers just collapses.
It becomes a much, much smaller group of people you can actually reach. In our example, maybe it's only 12,000 people over a whole year. And that massive drop, that's probably the most important piece of information you've uncovered so far.
Okay, so now we have a realistic, reachable market. The question completely changes. It's no longer how big is the ocean. It's now how much water can my little bucket actually hold. This next part is all about turning that reachable market into actual projected revenue.
This forces you to think about your personal limits, and that's step 4. It's not about the market anymore. It's about your own capacity to get the job done. I mean, how much inventory can you physically carry? How many sales can you even process in that short hour before a show starts? You have to be brutally honest with yourself here.
And now, step 5. We do the simple math. We set a believable, maybe even conservative market share goal. Let's say we aim to sell to just 1% of our 12,000 reachable people. That's 120 shirts. At $25 a shirt, that gives us a projected annual revenue of $3,000. But here's the absolutely crucial part. You have to write down the assumptions that get you to that number. As you see here, it's based on being able to attend 15 shows and selling about 8 shirts at each one.
So, we've got our projection. We're done, right? Not so fast. This final step is what separates a good forecast from a great one. It's where you really show you're thinking strategically. It's not just about what happens if you're wrong, it's about understanding which parts of your plan are the most fragile.
This is the question you have to ask yourself. Where does this whole model fall apart? A great entrepreneur doesn't just cross their fingers and hope for the best. They try to find the idea's breaking point before they pour their life savings into it.
Let's actually put this into practice. Remember one of our key assumptions, attending 15 shows? Let's stress test that. What if there's bad weather, or a few shows get canceled, or hey, life just happens and we can only make it to 10 shows instead of 15? All of a sudden, our projected revenue drops by 1/3, from $3,000 down to $2,000. This shows us just how vulnerable the whole business is to that one single factor.
And really, that brings us to the most important takeaway of this whole process. The point of all this work isn't to perfectly predict the future. I mean, nobody can do that. The real goal is to build a logical, defensible story that proves you've thought through the challenges. It's a tool to help you make a smart, well-reasoned decision about whether to go forward, change your plan, or maybe even walk away.
Which leads us to this final thought. If the author had done all this for Eclectic back in the day, who knows? Maybe the numbers would have shown it was a great idea. Or maybe the data would have made it crystal clear that it just wasn't a viable business. But either of those outcomes, moving ahead with confidence or stopping before wasting a ton of time and money, is infinitely better than just guessing and hoping you get lucky.